call a member for Stretton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In our media and public discourse in Australia, China is often talked about as though it is a monolithic political, cultural and economic entity. It is very easy to gloss over the very real differences within China. Different areas of China have different cuisines, economies, cultures and religions. Historically, they have spoken different languages. In the coastal regions of the east, you find cities like Shanghai, Hong Kong, Guangzhou and Beijing. These are the advanced regions, and they are what first comes to mind when we think of China. One of the most common examples of Chinese economic growth is the coastal city of Shenzhen. In 1979, Shenzhen was a sleepy fishing village on the border with Hong Kong. It had a population of no more than 30,000. Under Deng Xiaoping's economic development policies, it was designated as a special economic zone and exploded in wealth and population. In 2015, it had a population of over 10 million and a GDP per capita of $25,000 US, slightly over a third of Australia's GDP per capita. Shanghai is another one of these miracle cities. I'm sure that many members present will be familiar with the famous photographs of the Pudong region. 30 years ago, you could stand on one side of the Huangpu River and look over onto a small rural area with some villages and mudflats. Today, you look across that same river and see a gleaming metropolis, the financial centre of modern mainland China. Madam Deputy Speaker, those are the images that stick in our mind when we think about the Chinese economic transformation, and these are very real achievements. But there is a plot twist in the story of Chinese economic growth. The GDP per capita of Shanghai is $16,000 US. For Shenzhen, it is $25,000 US. For Hong Kong, it is about $38,000 US. However, the GDP per capita of China as a whole is around $6,000 US dollars. So, the story of Chinese economic transformation is true, but it is also incomplete. China possesses areas at vastly different stages of economic development. For starters, you have what are called the second-tier cities, Wuhan, Chengdu, Chongqing, which are closing in on the top tier. These cities are further inland, but also major population centres in their own right. There are other inland provinces that are substantially underdeveloped. Anhui, Gansu and Guizhou fall into this category. While coastal cities are increasingly moving up the value chain, developing substantial financial, media, trading and cultural economies, many areas in the interior still rely heavily on natural resource and agricultural production. Because of this disparity, we have to ask the question, is taking a monolithic approach to China adequate? Real consideration should be given to how we reflect the reality of economic disparity in China in trade and investment strategies. One approach may be to develop an overall strategic roadmap to China, which sets out the challenges and opportunities common to trade and investment across China, linguistic, legal, cultural. Nested under the overall strategic roadmap would be a series of regional strategies that address at a more detailed level the economic opportunities on a region-by-region basis. For example, you could have an overall China strategy, but then more detailed strategies for investors dealing in coastal China, inland China and special administrative regions. We should also look to engage our existing human resources and socio-cultural networks. My own electorate of Stretton has very high levels of cultural and economic engagement with mainland China and Hong Kong. We should look to leverage these existing networks. Likewise, Australia possesses a substantial expatriate network in Asia. A recent report by PricewaterhouseCoopers found that by 2030, 450,000 Australians will be living, working and studying in Asia. We should also examine how business can be supported to get better and smarter at leveraging our existing person-to-person networks. Rather than reinvent the wheel, we need to figure out what assets we already possess and get better at using those. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, the disgraceful conduct of the LNP in supporting One Nation cannot be allowed to go unremarked. We cannot expect to trade with and invest in China while the LNP get into bed with far right-wing xenophobia. Madam Deputy Speaker, my community is a vibrant, strong example of multiculturalism in action. It is a cultural strength and properly leveraged, it will also be an economic strength. The LNP One Nation alliance does not represent Queensland and we cannot allow their cowardice to destroy engagement with China. Madam Deputy Speaker, fear-driven politics is not the answer.
Hear, hear.